Welcome to the CBIA BizCast powered by Google. On this podcast, we dive into stories about Connecticut businesses.
Downs Construction actually came to my school.
And business leaders.
I think it's always also really important to be able to see a path forward.
We're shaping the future of Connecticut's economy.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and this week we are joined here by Michael D. Donato, Development Manager at UConn Innovation Partnership Building.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the podcast today.
Glad to be here.
The Innovation Partnership Building is the cornerstone of the UConn Tech Park, a center for cutting-edge research, collaboration, and innovation. So tell us a little bit more about the Tech Park and what it offers.
The Tech Park is a really amazing initiative that the state and the university funded to act as kind of a front door for industry into the services that are available at the university. The Innovation Partnership Building is the first and flagship building of the Tech Park. We hope to expand in the coming years to increase our capabilities. But it's been a really fun place to meet a bunch of new businesses and help them out with new technology services.
And really, there's a wide span of services that the Tech Park and Partnership Building can help businesses with.
Yes, so we have 19 centers, most of which are led by a faculty director, headquartered in our building. And they mostly focus on four pillars: sustainability, defense and materials, cybersecurity, and systems and manufacturing. So across those four pillars, those are our specialties, so to speak. But those 19 centers all fall into different connections within those areas of expertise. And given, you think about the state of Connecticut, with all the defense industry here, with the growing push for sustainability, the offshore wind stuff coming out of New London. And then, of course, we're a huge manufacturer, so that makes sense. And cybersecurity is something that's growing everywhere. And for us, there's a key connection with a few initiatives in the state as well there.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you mentioned those pillars, it aligns pretty perfectly, but with what's happening specific to Connecticut, but also kind of on a more broad scale as well.
Yeah, and it's not exclusively within those. I mean, obviously, there's a large bio presence in the state, and we touch companies from all different walks of life, so to speak. But those are our focus points. Most innovation parks, if you look across the country, have some sort of specialty. There's a very impressive one out of Wichita. It's called the Innovation Campus, and their focus is commercial aerospace. So if you're in the commercial aerospace business, you likely have a presence there. And we want to create that same sort of draw to companies, especially within sustainability, again, defense/materials and cybersecurity and systems and manufacturing.
And I mean, relatively, you guys are still relatively new. Was it 2017?
Yes, so the building opened end of 2017 and the labs moved in and then COVID joined us. So things slowed down a bit. And I would say really we've been accelerating since COVID kind of whispered away. So I look at the last year as being a really productive time for us, increasing outreach, really spreading the word. And that's why I'm excited to be here to spread the word, because a lot of people don't know what's there and how many different services are available to them that could help out their business.
And you use the model of Wichita, and I'm sure you've they've been able to see really quickly, once we take this model, get it out there, everyone knows about it, but everyone's still learning about what Connecticut is capable of.
Yes, that's totally true. I do feel like we're in a good spot right now, especially with so much alignment within different state organizations, kind of all seeming to push in the same direction, which is really nice. And I would say the same is true right now within UConn. We have a lot of different, for a long time, silos, and those silos have broken down to a great degree. We've got new leadership. Dr. Radenka Merrick is our president. She is a researcher. She understands the value of industry. And so with all of these pieces coming together, it's like the perfect storm in a good way of getting things done.
So we've got a couple pieces coming together. Where did your piece fall in? How long have you been involved?
I've only been with the Tech Park for a year and a half. I was with industry for 18 years and was looking for something different. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, recommended this spot, and it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. My industry work was somewhat a fantastic experience. A great industry is such a wonderful way to appreciate pace, I would say. And coming to UConn, I didn't really know what to expect. I was a little bit worried about like the ivory tower feel. I was a little bit worried about whether pace of academia would be a hindrance when surrounded by industry needs. But I haven't found either to be true. I found the faculty are amazingly approachable, and we're able to move pretty quickly, which is really great. So that's a little bit about how I entered into the game, and hopefully my expertise will help make connections for the university and make a difference for businesses in Connecticut.
What's your coming in now, really post-pandemic at this point? What's kind of the next step? What were some of the challenges that that were faced, and how are you kind of helping look beyond that?
So, for challenges, I would say that again the biggest one is outreach. We have, as an example, a world-class microscopy wing, which is microscopes looking. I look at it kind of being like Connecticut's metallurgy lab, and it's the best on the East Coast. I mean, this isn't like just a good resource; it's an unbelievable resource. And when people think about UConn or they think about the state of Connecticut, they don't make those associations. Like, oh, where's the best microscopy on the East Coast? I bet you most people wouldn't guess Connecticut, but it's here. And they would think MIT. They would think all of the juggernauts of technology university institutions. And that's where we have this great resource, but people need to know about it. The director of that microscopy wing was commenting that if that wing was at MIT, it would be used 24/7. And it's not being used 24/7, and it should be. And it's here for Connecticut businesses to utilize. And this is one of 19 centers that are looking to interact and collaborate with industry. So your question of, what is the biggest challenge? I would say it's just getting the word out. I'm very confident when we bring industry clients through that they will find something of value within the walls of the Tech Park and the Innovation Partnership Building. And it's just about making people know what's available to them.
What are some of the other big technological pieces that make up the park?
So we have within those four pillars, of course, the 19 centers each have their own specific core of expertise. 3D metal additive is one. Modeling and simulation is another. For the small businesses side, prototyping is very valuable. And some of these have in addition to having just generally, all the pricing is based off depreciation value of like equipment.
Yeah.
And as a state university, we're not allowed to make a profit, which coming from industry is a little bit challenging for me at first, but I get it.
It's a different business model.
It's a different business model. It's like how can we bring in more revenue for the university? It's like no, that's not what this is about. So a lot of these centers have programs within the state to help subsidize some of those costs, which are already pretty affordable too. So for a small business, having access to metallurgy equipment, I think, is a huge value. Having access to simulation modeling tools to help them design better products or identify and solve manufacturing problems, and having prototyping capabilities for 3D printing, laser cutting, that sort of thing, where, again, this tools that the typical small business won't necessarily have in their shop, but considering if we can get them to consider the resources at university to be an extension of their resources, it becomes really obvious. If you can imagine having, all the 3D printers you could desire in your shop, you'd use them. And so if we can meet engineers and get them familiar with what's available, then hopefully they'll take advantage.
So, the park sits right on UConn's campus. Businesses, how should they get involved? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, we are in Storrs. We're just north of campus, far enough away that we avoid some of the parking issues,
okay.
Which blows my mind that you can have a university that's surrounded by farms that have parking issues, but that's a separate conversation. So we are just slightly off campus. How does it, what does it typically look like when we interact with a company? A lot of it starts off as education, just look to see what's here, us understanding what the company's needs are, what their capabilities are. I love visiting manufacturing facilities across the state. It's always so fascinating, meeting and seeing what people are doing. We have such incredible diversity within the state, so that's always fun. But it gives us an idea of what's happening and what are you doing and where are the areas that you need help. Once we get to that point, it's a matter of connecting to faculty. We are a university. We have students. We've got faculty available in droves who are looking to stay relevant with industry problems. They tend to be excited about industry problems. So we introduce them to an industry who's looking for some help, and then the magic happens, so to speak, where whether it's access to facilities or interaction to solve a complicated problem that a company may not have internal resources or expertise to solve, that's the gap that we're hoping to fill.
And so kind of beyond that initial conversation, then it says, okay, we've got some students that are well-versed in this area that have been, using, whether it be the technology or, just the research, and then kind of connecting the two together.
Yes, and I feel it would be worthwhile to note, one of the common hurdles that we have to face is intellectual property. And coming from industry, that was a really important thing for me personally. And it's always a fear when people come in for a state university, are you going to own all my intellectual property? And UConn's really pretty good about it. Yes, if you ask us to invent cold fusion and we do it, then we'll probably want some piece of the pie. But for most interactions, there's no claim to intellectual property at all, which is really nice. Wow. And it keeps the intellectual piece of it with the businesses, which is so critical, especially for private businesses in the state where, yes, they have their product, but they've got their own secrets that they need to manage as well, and their own intellectual rights. And in terms of costs for businesses? It's cheap. It's crazy cheap. It blows my mind how affordable it is. I shouldn't say that. Every relationship is different. But at least with use of equipment, yeah, it is really cheap because it's based on depreciation value. So it tends to be much cheaper than we have pieces of equipment that are $1.5 million that the cost is $200 an hour. And you think about that, we've got another piece of equipment. It's a $21 million room between the equipment and the infrastructure. And it's $400 an hour for a company to use. So that just gives you a scale of appreciation. So for businesses that need those particular tools, it's such a great resource. When it comes to actual research and exploring and pushing the boundaries of what a business is able to achieve, that tends to start involving relationships with students, graduate research, that type of thing. And those are very different depending on the discipline. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to kind of lump it all together. But generally speaking, the return on investment is high. Yeah, I mean, we've talked to some, especially for small businesses, right? Mm-hmm. Connecticut's manufacturing ecosystem is primarily small businesses. Yeah. And, we've talked to some who say, look, we couldn't afford to do this if it weren't for this, and now we're able to. Yes. Are there any examples of companies that you have worked with, anecdotally, that you can tell us about? Yeah, a handful. So one of our great successes, initial successes, was with Acme Wire. They're in Mystic. They make lacrosse masks, for example. And we were walking through their shop, and one of our directors noticed a welding fixture. This is a polymer welding fixture that they were machining on a CNC mill. And it seemed like the perfect example of something that could be 3D printed. We proved it out, and now this option is available to them. We're not interested in getting into the game of production. It's really that's for another Connecticut business to take care of. What we'll do is we'll prove to you that this works. And maybe we'll guide you. In this case, we identified the right material, and we identified a particular printer that could print what they needed. And from there, we give it back to the company and say, run with it. We've had some great interactions with Willington Nameplate on some small projects. We've recently started talking to the Lee Company about access to our metallurgy suite of equipment, it's been wonderful, the number of companies we've touched, but I feel like we're only at the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more, so many more businesses that could be taking advantage.
What do you think is the biggest surprise for businesses when you start talking to them?
I think maybe the accessibility and approachability of what's at UConn. Kind of the same feeling that I had coming into UConn of, we're working with the university, what's that going to look like? And the fact that you can have a very candid, friendly conversation with a PhD who can solve all your problems it's really nice. It's a really good thing. So I consider it a success independent of, if I can connect a business with facilities or research, that's great. But if I can connect someone to an expert that can kind of act as like that 911 cell phone number that you can call when you're in trouble in a particular need, whether it's some interesting chemistry of a polymer that a company is that needs to get resolved or whatever it might be. If I can provide a connection that's as successful as anything else.
Yeah, and obviously, in these cases, the companies, know what they're dealing with. They've been dealing with it, and but this is just kind of an outside view, someone that's really focused on one specific aspect of the business or, one new piece of technology that they're kind of getting this analysis from.
Yes, yeah. And there's so many different points of entry, too. I think that people that we interact with tend to maybe not recognize that at the onset, where a lot of companies may come in and they're looking at some really complicated thing that they're trying to solve. But your typical small business doesn't have bandwidth for that. They may not even have bandwidth to manage an external resource working on this problem. I have complete appreciation for the fact that there are fires that have to be put out on a daily basis. So trying to explore some new research pathway isn't always something that a small business can handle. But there are different levels of interaction. We do a lot of senior design projects which take senior, my colleague describes them almost engineers, senior engineering students, putting them towards a task that's kind of like a back burner task. And this is one where they get faculty advisement. And yes, there's some interaction. But for the most, generally speaking, the students kind of go for it and they just run with it. It gives a company an opportunity to try out employees, so to speak, try out some engineers, see if they work. A lot of them end up with job offers, which is great.
It was funny, that's where I was going to go next. Obviously there's this great opportunity here for the companies, but the number one thing, facing businesses right now, manufacturers included, is workforce.
Yes.
So there is some success there.
Yeah, I mean, UConn is first and foremost an educational institution, so the students are the top priority.
Yeah.
Typically, UConn provides, the engineering, I wish I knew the numbers off the top of my head, but it's something like 60% of engineers in the state come from UConn, something like that. It's a significant percentage, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And to be able to develop connections with students in advance and see how they work is really valuable.
And this is, it's not like a summer internship. It's, during the school year, they're working with these businesses.
But the advantage is, again, that because it's aligned with the student year, the job, these projects are completing right as the job markets are opening, which is really nice. And these are teams that are often of 3 or 4 engineers, which is great. They can be cross-discipline. It's a great opportunity, and it's, I think it's $10,000 and less if you're a nonprofit. So it's not a big investment either, and so it's a really great entry type interaction with UConn to begin to understand what's available and the type of product that the university can provide.
And besides, a job opportunity, what other benefits are there for the students?
Oh, well, I mean, a huge one is the real life problems. I think that we've all heard the concern, and this is nice. I'm a mechanical engineering, I got to mention, mechanical engineering degree from WPI, and entering into the workforce, there's a kind of a wake-up call because industry work is different than the theoretical work that you're doing in the classroom. In the classroom, you're doing stuff like heat transfer coefficients, calculating heat transfer coefficients, or doing fluid modeling, or whatever it might be. And then you show up at the job site and they're saying stuff like, spec out this system, spec out a motor. And it's such a simple thing to do, but an engineering student who touches mostly on the theoretical is suddenly faced with a very practical problem. And that's a gap that needs to be closed. We need to get more of our engineering students in general, to be exposed to practical type problems so that they can be better prepared to hit the ground running with industry, with real work environments that face real challenges. And so projects like the senior engineering projects are critical for that, because now this is it's exactly that. It's a real world problem that they have to solve, and something that's much more realistic than solving equations in a dynamics class, something like that. We just did one with Asa Abloy that was a huge success.
Okay.
The students were working on a project that was trying to reduce the amount of carbon in a door product. And they knocked it out of the park. They came up with solutions. I think it was something like a 15% reduction of carbon. And this is for a product that's manufactured at the level of, tens of millions. And that's such a great experience. One, you're putting to use the stuff that you've learned into something that's practical. You're helping a company out, and you're making a difference on a major sustainability issue for a Connecticut manufacturer.
Yeah, and the students went on to enter that project into like a competition too.
Yeah,
and
they did really well.
They've seen that they're getting a lot of success, not only from helping the business, who's very much promoted that UConn students were a part of this, but also standing out for themselves as well.
Yeah, they won some accolades.
Yeah.
Well-deserved accolades.
Very much so, very much so. You guys have also been involved on a number of projects that are really going to help move the state forward. Can you tell me a little bit about Quantum?
Quantum Connecticut is a statewide initiative that is seeking to expand Connecticut's role in quantum technologies. So this is a big grant that we are seeking from the National Science Foundation. We received a provisional grant, we being a collaboration between UConn and Yale. We've been working with them, and it's such a great collaboration. They have incredible expertise. They've got on quantum technologies. They have the Yale Quantum Institute. And UConn, as I mentioned, has incredible microscopy capabilities. And the union of our two universities for this, seeking this grant, is just phenomenal for our state. So it's for a regional development engine, which, what does that mean? What does quantum mean? It's big question marks. What we're hoping to do is create like the Silicon Valley of quantum technologies here in Connecticut. And quantum technologies is basically technologies of the very small. People may have heard of quantum computers. They may have heard of quantum sensing. It's probably better to think of them as totally different, totally new economic opportunities. Thinking about imagine if in 1960 you could make the decision to invest in computers. That would be a really smart thing to do. Well, quantum is like the next version of that. And it's going to affect everybody in some way or another. It's not just going to be the physicists and the really high elites. It's going to be blue collar. It's going to be electricians will need to know how to work on a quantum system. Plumbers will have to understand how to work on a quantum system. Companies are going to have to explore new avenues of doing business. And we're hoping to work together to help Connecticut prepare itself for this coming change of technology. It involves municipalities, it involves a lot of the organizations in the state that we've already discussed. The CBIA is involved. And hopefully we can all work together to push this initiative. One of the NSF folks was describing it as, it's a success if the 7-year-olds in the state know it's happening. So if we can make it so that the kids of the state know that there's something called quantum, and it's going to be big, and it's going to be impactful, and hey, maybe it's something I want to learn more about. So as I go to high school and graduate, maybe it's something that will make an impact for me. If we can do that, then we'll be in a really good spot. We have 2 years to generate a proposal to the NSF. And if we succeed, we'll be receiving $160 million, which is a substantial sum. And it's only one small piece of a really big puzzle that we hope to build.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the launching pad point,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, this will be a 10+ year adventure of trying to prepare society in Connecticut for this change. And then hopefully it'll draw more businesses to the state, draw more interest to the state, just as Silicon Valley did to Silicon Valley. Maybe we can do the same thing here for quantum. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm the program manager for UConn, but there are so many people involved across the state. So I guess I would offer out to the listening folks that if they think that there might be a role that they could play, I'd be really interested to talk to them, because there very well may be.
And so in terms of, getting the word out there, obviously you're working with CBIA.
Yeah.
Who else, have you guys partnered with? Paul Lavoie?
Yes, and this is where, I commented earlier on how I felt like the state was moving together really well. We've developed some really strong relationships. One was with Paul Lavoie, which makes total sense. He's wonderful. We regularly have Connecticut manufacturers meetups at the Innovation Partnership Building, introducing business leaders to what's available to them. We've had some growing relationships with Advanced CT, trying to attract international companies to come to Connecticut because of these amazing resources that are here. Also, Constep, CCAT, we have a growing relationship with them, and all of us together, I feel, are, bigger than the sum of our parts. You take 1 + 1 + 1 and you get 4. And that's where this collaboration feeling within Connecticut has been so awesome.
You really want to get to the point where you have to start saying, no,
We're not there yet.
No, but that's where you'd like to get to,
yeah.
right? Where so many businesses are seeing the resources and using the resources that
Right.
it's so much.
Yeah, and we, right now we're still in an expansion phase for the Tech Park. We're hoping to add more buildings to the mix. We want our next one to be focused on having industry tenants who are looking to have immediate, on-site access to all of this equipment and faculty expertise and a student pipeline, attract them to come and have a presence within the Tech Park. That's our next step. And we'll continue to grow our expertise as well. UConn is really big. It's really big. And it blows my mind how big it is. When we'll bring companies in, and we had a company come in whose expertise was in wire and insulation. And I was talking to my boss and saying, who are the faculty that we should invite? He said, invite Dr. Chow. He's an expert on wire insulation. I was like, well, of course we have an expert on this niche area. And it feels like that with every industry that we bring in, is that there's someone on campus who specializes in that exactly. And that's a really cool thing.
And, coming from where you did RPI, right?
So I went to WPI.
WPI.
I have an MBA from RPI in Hartford.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, the PIs.
Yes, the PIs. What is there anything that surprised you about kind of stepping into this? I know you said just like the scope, the collaboration, but what surprised you the most?
I would say maybe the how broad it is. That ties into my last comment about so much expertise in so many different small little areas, and the ease. I would say would also surprised me. It really is. Its interactions are simple, and I was expecting them to be more complicated. I was expecting bureaucracy, and I haven't seen much of that, which is really nice.
What's next? I know we said expansion. Is there anything else businesses can expect to see?
I think that as we grow and as our expertise becomes more well known, hopefully we'll be able to leverage that more broadly for the state of Connecticut. So it's not just a matter of helping out this business here and this business here, but attracting greater expertise in these areas to the state. Again, when you look at our pillars and what the state offers, it makes sense. But if we can help, if what UConn has can help attract more businesses that are focused on sustainability, that's a really good thing for us. If we can attract more businesses that focus on specialized materials that can then be used by the defense industry, that's a really good thing for Connecticut. If we can attract more businesses that are focused on cybersecurity or systems, the same thing becomes true. And hopefully we'll be able to feed back into industry more industry support. That would be a great success.
So really the mission has so many parts. Obviously, first and foremost for the students, which not only give them, the experience of these real life problems, but also gets them directly into the workforce,
Yes.
which builds right into the Connecticut businesses who need that workforce and want to make sure that those UConn students are studying at UConn are going right to Connecticut businesses.
Yes.
Those businesses to help them grow and innovate, but then also for Connecticut as a whole to be able to attract new industry.
Absolutely.
And that's a real big economic boom.
It is. Yeah, I feel like we have a part to play in the growth of our state. And it's exciting to be living in Connecticut at this time.
Great. Well, we're excited to hear that. And I know so many manufacturers are too. So if there is a manufacturer that's listening, what's the best way for them where should they start?
So there are a lot of different entry points to the university, but I'm willing to put my name out and say I'm happy to be a contact. And if I can pass an industry person to the right contact, whether it's School of Engineering or liberal arts or wherever it might be on the campus, I'm happy to do that. And I've got a team of people that are very much like me who are eager to send out different contacts to the right destination. So that's a great place to start. But if there's already a contact that this individual has with the university, just referencing the Innovation Partnership Building will get them in connection to us.
Great. Well, we can hopefully get some more businesses connected with you, especially in the coming weeks and as we highlight manufacturers this month of October.
Wonderful.
And so kind of taking a step back, we like to close out by talking a little bit to just leaving listeners with some advice. Obviously, you've been in industry. You're now in this new role. You're working with students, professors, manufacturers. What are some of the things that you've learned as a leader?
I think probably one of the most valuable traits is curiosity. And I think people see the results of curiosity, but looking for it specifically is a very smart idea. So people who are curious, I think, will accomplish great things. And you can learn so much, and there's so much to learn about. And whether it's I love my job. I get to talk to different businesses all the time. I'm so curious to just understand what they're doing. And I think that if they have curiosity too, that they'll go really far. So I would say curiosity is probably underappreciated as one of the core values for success.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. For more episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.